From the John DeVito Broadcast Center, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Armchair Experts with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich on Wednesday, September the 28th, the year of our Lord, 2016. And now here they are, back in the saddle again after a restful vacation, Jim and Rich.
You know, it was funny. We went to see, while we were away, we went to see the Grand Ole Opry. And there is a group there that was the host of the first segment, longtime members of the Grand Ole Opry, called Riders in the Sky. And if you remember...
Ghost Riders in the Sky?
Well, you remember the band that used to play with Roy Rogers. They're kind of that way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and a lot of Western swing and that type of stuff. And,
okay.
But I kind of, listening to them and watching the interplay, it made me think, oh, my God, this is country and Western's answer to the Yoopers. Just goofing the Yoopers from northern Michigan.
Oh, okay.
You know, they had a song called The Second Week of Deer Camp.
Oh, my God.
And all the guys are here, we sit around and drink and smoke and never shoot no deer. The only time we leave the camp is when we need more beer. It's the second week of deer camp. But they close their little segment with happy trails to you.
Oh, okay.
You know, so.
Okay.
You know, weird thing happened. I got out of my car, I heard a whistle blow, and the referee jumped out and called me for a legal procedure.
What happened?
Yeah, I got out of the car, and the referee, whistle blew, and all of a sudden the referee from Friday night jumped out and threw a flag on me for a legal procedure.
Man, I saw Don Gelsomino Sr. the next day because I did end up going to.
Did you go to the coffee?
Yeah, I went for part of it, and I'm glad. I think it started at 9:30. I left at 10. I think it lasted till about 11:30. But a lot of what was being said were things that I already had some idea on. The mayor talked a little bit about Miller's Ale House and when they're going to break ground, and not when they're going to break ground, but Miller's Ale House, I think he said it should be open in the spring, as well as the rest of the theater property.
Good.
Good. So a lot of what was already mentioned, I had heard, so I left early.
Mm-hmm. But Don Senior was a little.
He was upset.
Yeah.
He was, and he told me, he gave me the numbers, Jim. He didn't tell me how many flags, but 300 yards and penalties between the two teams.
Oh Lord!
I mean, that's unheard of.
We did, in case you're wondering, Rich and I did a Ridgewood football game Friday night versus Elmwood Park, and there had to be a minimum of 35 penalties.
Mm-hmm.
And it really was, that's why I made the comment. When I got home Friday night, I texted Rich, and I said, about 11:30, I said, wait a minute, did the referee just throw another flag?
Yeah.
And I thought today, I said, that'll be good. Yeah, I'll open up. When I got out of the car, a whistle blew, and I got called for a legal motion.
Thankfully, I put that totally out of my mind, and it took me a few seconds to realize where you were going with that. So
you got to stay right up to date here.
With that, yeah. But that was Friday. This is Tuesday.
Well, he's still around. He's not. He's still got flags to throw.
He's still got a lot of flags to throw.
He's still got flags to throw. Hi, golly.
Hope we don't get those guys again.
Wow. Oh man. I hope. And what's worse is, I hope none of them are basketball referees this winter.
You wonder if. You wonder if that's how much experience a crew like that has. I just don't see. I understand you could probably throw a flag on every play.
Oh, sure. There's always something.
An experienced crew will take a look and say, okay, you know what? I saw holding, but it had no effect on the play. I'm going to, not going to drop the flag.
Sure. What was... I hear noises. Oh, just you. It's just John.
Was it the same referee that kept throwing the flag, or was it all of them?
Oh, they were.
Oh, it was all of them.
They all participated in this. Like I said, we missed Clemenza from a couple of years ago. If you remember that game with the big guy out there who kept throwing the flags and kind of waddled over and picked him up and made the call. Leave the flag, take the cannoli.
I ran into Pat Rossi the other day, and we chatted a little bit about the game and, of course, the referees. And I said, Pat, I thought that on the penalty that got everybody, the pass interference that appeared to happen with both players out of bounds.
Yeah.
I said, and I think I said this during the broadcast, I thought our player might have been face guarding, and maybe that was the call. And Pat said, well, in the pros, defensive holding, face guarding, pass interference are all different degrees of the same penalty, let's say. In high school, they're all just considered
pass interference. Okay.
So, but he didn't comment on whether he thought I was right or wrong on that, but he just clarified for me that if the guy said it was pass interference, then indeed he could have been
face guarding.
Face guarding.
He could have been face guarding. Okay, that helps.
The one that got me, Jim, though, was I think there was I want to say Elmwood Park was returning I think it was a kickoff, and the official who had been behind the kicking team, our team, and I got to say probably was at least 30 yards away from wherever this play could have happened, threw the flag and called either holding or illegal block in the back on EP. And he was easily the furthest official from the play.
Yeah, that one I do remember, and I didn't. It was another one I just didn't understand. Well, anyhow.
Well, are you talking about Ridgewood and their football game on Friday to avoid the fact that Derek Rose has been charged with, or possibly is going to be charged with rape?
There is a criminal. It's not just a civil case now. There's a criminal file open.
A criminal case.
I wonder,
or the Bears. You don't want to talk about the Bears.
I wonder. Oh, well, there's other things we're going to get. We'll get to that somewhere down the road. We may even talk politics. I managed to last 32 minutes last night watching the debate before I opened up the Jack Daniels bottle, and they didn't sound any better.
Okay.
I posted that comment to Facebook. I said they didn't sound any better. They gave me a headache, and a friend of mine who's a diehard Cub fan, he went, "You mean Hawk and Wimpy?"
Hawk and Wimpy. Yeah.
I said I would have rather heard a story about Yaz than what I heard last night. Than what I heard last night.
So what are we going to talk about?
I got a couple of things here. First of all,
good.
Couple of things, baseball-wise. First of all, and I can't remember the full details. I think it was Detroit and Cleveland recently played a 1-0 10-inning game.
Okay.
I can't remember who the winning, which team won, but they used 9 pitchers to combine for a shutout.
Oh my God! For a 1-0 game,
a 1-0 10-inning game, they used 9 pitchers.
Wow. Now, then I thought I had heard from somebody,
which is a record, by the way,
that a recent game, and they were attributing this to the fact that the rosters have expanded as of September 1st.
Right.
That there was a combined 17 pitchers used in a game.
Probably.
I wouldn't
doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it. I remember a number of years ago looking at the box scores one day and noticing that it was a 1-0 game between Milwaukee and can't even remember who that took 3 hours and 57 minutes. A 1-0 9-inning game that took 3 hours.
I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, and I sent an email off to Statboy. And Statboy said, "Yeah, I noticed that," and he posted to some board, I can't even remember what it was, some baseball board, and he got a response back from somebody that said, "Well, when you consider the number of pitches and the number of when you add up the number of pitches that were thrown and divide that by the total hours of the total time of the game, this was one of the quicker games played there that day."
Wow. Well, the people who get me, though, Now, a 1-0 game should be quicker than that. But the people who get to me are the people who say, well, in base, hey, they got to speed the game up.
Right.
But they'll probably be the same people who say, well, the prices are ridiculous. Do you know what you spend to go to the game? I mean,
right.
to take a family, it costs
right.
you $400.
That's right.
And you want it, what? You wanted to go buy it an hour and a half? I mean, what are you talking about here?
Right. That's right. Now, there's another one that I had to laugh at, a guy I have known from posting to the Scoreheads board and everything else, and a good music maven, too. He posted this the other day, and he has a picture here from Baseball Reference, and it says the 2016 AL SRS leaders. He said, my goodness, if there's any proof
SRS leaders?
If there's any proof needed that baseball stats are out of control, it's this. I have no idea what this is and do not care. If you only have 1.3 of something, If you only have 1.3 of something and you lead the league by 0.5, then it's not worth measuring. These modern-day metrics have really decreased my interest in what was my favorite sport. No one steals, no one bunts, no one hits and runs, etc., because no one wants to give away an out.
That's interesting. But
I have
does
no
this
idea.
SRS have something to do with that?
Yeah, he said, I have no idea, and neither does he, and I didn't look it up.
Well, I can understand sometimes, that you don't want to give up an out. I mean, in certain situations, but in other, I don't know. I'm not so sure that that's a newfangled idea. I mean, if you go back to Earl Weaver, I mean, he was not a big proponent of bunting or giving up outs.
I mean,
So,
his solution to everything was the 3-run homer.
Yeah, and he had the guys to do it, so
Yeah.
he didn't have to worry about it. But I agree with the guy on this. To me, the more I hear these stats, the more I'm going to say that the old stats have just as much meaning. And there's anomalies, okay? There's going to be, you're going to have a batter who hits over 300 and maybe doesn't have the impact that you would think that average would have. But by and large, batting average, RBIs, home runs, walks and strikeouts, ERA for a pitcher, are all they're very meaningful statistics. They always have been.
Yeah, and they always will be.
You can break these down even further. But I'd say this: you brought up last time, or we had a conversation, maybe not on the air, where Hawk Harrelson, I think, had said, geez, I think Todd Frazier is as good or better player than Chris Bryant.
Yeah.
And actually, I think there's two arguments you could make there. I think Todd Frazier, arguably, is as an effective player as Chris Bryant, because when you look at their numbers, and they're power hitters, okay, so their numbers power-wise are about the same. But where you can really get into a good discussion with somebody is Chris Bryant is hitting close to 300, and I believe the last time I looked, Frazier was up to about 225. But if Todd Frazier hit the ball with more frequency, say if he was even a 240 hitter, now you could say...
Now you have some justification.
Now you could say, wow, this guy, if he hit 240, he's not just going to have 39 homers and 100 RBIs. He's going to have 45 homers and 115 RBIs.
Yeah, 226 hitter.
Yeah.
226. 39 home runs, 96 runs batted in.
But you know what? The old numbers can tell you that just as well as any new number.
The number here, the SRS, and I go back and I found an article. I found an article from USA Today Sports from 2014. And they said sometimes the best teams based on one-loss record really aren't the best teams. Record involves a large sample size and has the beauty of simplicity, but it can also... Record involves a large sample size and has the beauty of simplicity, but it also can mask a significant disparity at the true talent level. two other factors come into play. Strength of schedule. If two teams have the same record, but one plays in a juggernaut division, such as the American League East of the last 7 seasons, this goes back to 2014 now, and the other team plays in a weaker one, it's pretty safe to assume the team in the stronger division is better. Run differential. Some teams punch above their weight class in a given season by excelling in tight games, such as the Baltimore Orioles in 2012. Baltimore went 93-69, despite scoring 7 more runs than they allowed, thanks to a 29-9 record in one-run ball games. BaseballReference.com offers a statistic, simple rating system, SRS. It's basically the rating of the team that takes both of these factors into account. The stat shows how much better a given team is than an average major league team in terms of runs per game. Values typically are between -1 and +1, with occasional great or awful teams outside of those bounds. So that's really what it is.
Well,
it's just kind of an overall reference to a team's record, strength of schedule, and their run differential.
Well, how about the old eyeball test? I would say.
How about that?
In this case,
Yeah.
say we're talking baseball. I'd say the Cubs probably have the most talented team in baseball, and
Yeah.
their record reflects it. Now,
Yep.
that doesn't mean that they could get into a playoff situation and lose, but I think their talent has outweighed everything this year.
Yeah.
You know, same when we look back at and for years the Yankees. I mean, they had an unbelievable team. When we were kids, Jim, I think that was the 61 season. They had 3 guys listed at catchers, and every one of them had more than 20 home runs. Well, I guess when you have, you know what? I don't think I would have needed any other statistic than that to tell me the Yankees were a pretty darn dominant team that year.
And you think about the American League that year. Wasn't that the year the Yankees won like 109 ball games and the Tigers won like 102 or 103?
They might have. Yeah, because the Tigers had a good team and a good year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they wound up finishing second. Well, I think it was the same year, same thing. If we go back, as suddenly stats pop into my head here, Cleveland in 1954 wins 111 ball games, and the Yankees won over 100 ball games and weren't anywhere close to them.
No, they finished. I think they were actually about 7 out. I think the
7 or 8?
Yankees actually won 104 games.
Yeah.
So, and it was actually that would have been. And think about this. The Yankees started a string of 5 consecutive World Series championships in 1949. So they won 49, 50, 1, 2, and 3. In 54, they were stopped by the Indians and still won 104 games. So they could have easily. Now, I'm pretty sure they won again in 55.
No, 55. The Dodgers won.
Was that the year the
that
Dodgers
was the
won?
year. That was the year the Brooklyn Dodgers won their only championship.
Okay. So, and then, we're talking from 49 to 60, what would it be, 4. The Yankees were in the World Series every year except for 2.
Yankees were in the World Series every year except 59
and 54.
and 54.
Yeah. So that's dominance, folks.
Yep, that is.
Now, I want to ask you this, Jim, and because I'm thinking of dominance, and I'm also thinking that whatever is new seems to be, it seems to be that person, whatever niche they're in, is the greatest. Because the guys over the weekend were saying, I think Bill Belichick is the greatest football coach ever. I'm like, hey, Bill Belichick is a great football coach, but the greatest coach ever? I'm not sure. He's very good. He's up there, believe me.
Go back and look at his body of work when he was the head coach of the Browns.
Well, that's true too.
You know.
But the thing, I think the thing that really separated him, and where you could sort of separate his record for Browns versus Patriots, is that Kraft had the faith in him to really put him over personnel decisions.
Yeah.
And he knows his stuff.
He knows his stuff.
Same as when Vince Lombardi came to Green Bay, and they really basically, he ran the team, but he also had the say-so on the personnel decisions.
Mhm.
So,
And that made the difference. That made the difference. Going back to what you started out with.
you're away from your mic, Jim.
Oh, going back to what you started out with there about not wanting to talk about, or going to talk about Derrick Rose to avoid any discussion of the Bears. Do you think the Bulls were smart enough when they made this deal that they knew what was coming down the pike?
Maybe they were.
And then that tells you the great Phil Jackson isn't all-seeing and all-knowing.
Yeah. Well, don't the let's see. Which Bulls do the Knicks have now? They have Rose and Noah,
Yeah,
and they have somebody else. Do they have one more guy?
that's all I can think of right off the Rose and Noah.
Well, I think when you're in a position, say, of a guy like Phil Jackson, you're probably thinking, okay, we want to get this thing up to speed as quickly as we possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
Now, who's the Knicks coach now? Do you know? Who's coaching the Knicks?
Let's
I'm not
see.
sure.
Derek Fisher was the coach before.
Is it somebody that makes sense? Somebody that would be
Well,
a Phil Jackson
It
guy?
it might be a Phil Jackson kind of guy.
Okay.
Why does Kurt Rambis's name pop into my head?
Maybe he's the guy.
Maybe he is the guy.
I don't know. But I don't think Kurt Rambis was around when Phil Jackson was around, unless he was an executive in L.A.
He might have been. He might have been the. He might have been in the front office then.
Okay.
The Knicks coach. Oh no, Jeff Hornacek.
Oh, that's right, Jeff Hornacek.
Jeff Hornacek.
Well, maybe he figures you got a couple of Chicago guys there, Hornacek and Rose, and maybe they can be on the same page. I don't know. The other thing is, here's the problem I think with Derrick Rose. And just take his off the court issues he may have, and try to eliminate the injury history. But if you're just talking about Derrick Rose, the player at this point, Derrick Rose is probably needs to do less. And I think he'll be a more effective player if he does less. If he's just a playmaker and you don't expect anything more out of him, then I think you have a shot at having a good player.
Yeah.
But if you are doing, if you do expect out of him what the Bulls were expecting out of him, I don't think he's got that to give you anymore.
No. It's just a kind of question that I posed here about whether the Bulls knew what was going on. Asked at Bulls Media Day whether the team looked into the allegations when they were made, Vice President of Basketball Operations John Paxson said, "We did not. We knew what everyone else knew. We didn't do anything beyond that. These are legal matters. It's not our purview."
Well, I sort of agree with that in one sense, but I think regardless, whatever Derrick Rose did off the court, though, Jim, I think the Bulls wanted to and needed to get rid of him.
That was a move that needed to be made. It was either going to be him or Jimmy Buckets.
Yeah, and you know what, Jimmy Butler, whatever you think about him, at least his health has been healthy basically, and I think Jimmy Butler said the best thing about Jimmy Butler, not last year but the year before. They were touting him as an all-star and this and that, and he said, and then a potential superstar, at least to Chicago papers, and he said, you know what, I don't think I'm in that category. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not a good player, but I'm not up there with LeBron James and whoever else you want to name.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was a correct analysis. I would say, here's a guy, if you're, if the max level is 10, he might be at 9.
Yeah.
But he's not at 10 yet.
Yeah.
And may never be.
Yeah.
I just don't think he's got that. LeBron James, Stephen Curry, whoever else you might want to put in that group, have got some natural gifts that they use. I don't think Jimmy Butler is in that category. I think Jimmy Butler works hard and has developed his skills to a really high level, but I don't think the natural ability of a shooter or just a plain scorer is in his. He's made himself a better one.
He's made himself a good ball player.
Mm-hmm.
Is he a superstar quality ball player?
No, I don't think so.
No, he is not in that category.
But that's fine. I mean, you could, you can, if the guy is the right guy, you can build a team around that guy.
Sure.
I mean, I was
you get the right pieces. Sure.
I was always mystified by the Bulls when they, after one really good year, got rid of Elton Brand. I mean, there was a very good player, not going to be a superstar player, but a guy you could have built around. And
Elton Brand has had a good career.
Yeah. I think he's still around.
I think he's still around.
I think I saw that he just signed with somebody recently.
And he's still around. He had a good career as a decent ball player.
Yeah.
I mean, another guy that I thought of, as soon as you mentioned Elton Brand, about a guy that just filled, that had a good career, that came out with a modicum of talent, was Tyrone Corbin.
Yeah.
Tyrone Corbin had been a starter, had been a bench player, lasted in the league, 16 years before he became a coach.
Mm-hmm.
There was a guy that, it wasn't a guy you could build a career around, but there was a guy, or build a team around, but there's a guy who made an impact wherever he went.
Yeah.
He filled a role and served well.
Well, those guys are the guys who you take a look at a guy, well, like the guy who quarterbacked for the Bears on Monday night. I didn't realize how many teams Brian Hoyer had been with, and didn't even realize who he had started out with, which was the Patriots. But
I didn't even remember that.
Yeah, I mean, he had been with the Patriots, the Cardinals, the Browns, the Texans. He actually had been signed but never played with the Steelers. So the Bears are like his fifth or sixth stop. But my point would be a guy like a Brian Hoyer. Jim McMahon was this guy as injuries took a toll on his career, but he was still a guy that was a good quarterback that would be a great guy to have as a backup, and many teams had him as that.
Yeah.
Mike Tomczak, who's not the same caliber of quarterback as, say, a McMahon, had a long career as a backup quarterback.
And had some periods as a starter.
Right.
And you talk about McMahon with injuries taking his toll. I mean, that one year when he was with the Eagles and Randall Cunningham got injured and he wound up having to be the starter.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I think he may have thrown close to 500 passes that year.
Who was this now?
McMahon.
Well, Jim.
And they joked about, after one game, he was walking around looking for somebody to help him put his T-shirt on so he could leave, so he could get dressed and leave.
Well, there's two things that I think of when you talk about, you're on this subject, or we're on this subject. Go back to when we were kids. Take a guy like Zeke Bratkowski.
Right.
Say, okay, he quarterback for the Bears, quarterback for the Rams, with modest success. Went to the Packers, was a backup.
Right.
But what he was called on, performed really well with the Packers. But he was surrounded by an excellent team. So he was able to show his best self because he was surrounded by those guys. Now take a guy, say, like Brian Hoyer, who quarterback for us Monday night. People would say, you think that he'll do any better than, say, Jimmy Clausen? I said, yeah, I think he'll do a lot better. And the reason I think he'll do better is, first off, he's been with teams where he hasn't had the deck stacked for him almost never.
Right.
So he's used to doing a little bit more with a little bit less. And I said, the other thing about this is when, you got a guy like Cutler, say, and I'm not knocking Jay Cutler, but say he really relies on maybe one guy, Alshon Jeffrey. I think when Hoyer gets out there, he's not going to rely just on one guy.
No, he's going to spread.
And you'll see more guys involved.
Yeah,
that might be a big plus.
He's going to spread. He's going to spread it around until he finds his answer to Alshon Jeffrey. By the way, I heard Jeremy Langford's going to be out for a few weeks with an ankle injury.
Well, that'll be.
I think Howard was really. I think a lot of people expect him to be the running back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think a lot of people thought by the end of the year he's going to be your number one running back, and maybe Langford will be your third down guy or your goal line guy.
Well, taking all the emotion out of, everybody's, the Bears are 0-3 and they stink and this and that.
Well, they stink.
I would say this. I'd say the offense looked a little bit better overall. I would say the defense looked terrible, but I don't care whose defense you are. When you have arguably 6 or 7 of your top players out, you're not going to look too good.
You're not going to look too good. Let's take a break.
You're listening to Armchair Experts from the John DeVito Broadcast Center on Jack FM 89.7, WRHS FM Norwich, and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Wednesday, September the 28th, the year 2016, with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. And this is Jack FM 89.7, WRHS FM Norwich, Illinois. And now back to Jim Leon and Rich Massaro and Armchair Experts.
I noted a little item as we were bringing up LeBron James's name in passing before. Another person that came in that movement of players a few years ago, Chris Bosh, has probably played his last game. He failed he failed his physical, and he's still having a problem with blood clots.
Wow, that's too bad.
Yeah, so the doctors wouldn't clear him to get him back out onto the floor. If you go back and look at it, it was really kind of a tough weekend sports-wise, with Jose Fernandez getting killed in the boating accident. I don't know if you saw any of the highlights of the game last night when D. Gordon led off the game with a home run. Led off the Marlins half of the inning with a home run, and it's kind of an emotional thing, because he started to cry. You could see him start to cry as he was rounding the bases, and both teams, it was kind of an emotional thing to see.
Mm-hmm.
Emotional thing to see, and the Marlins players gathering before the game and after the game at the pitcher's mound.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. I mean, it's a sad thing.
Yeah.
Although I'm thinking that Jose Fernandez probably died the way, I hate to say it this way, died the way Jose Fernandez probably was meant to die, because when you know a little bit about his background, his history, if everything you read is to be believed, he tried to get out of Cuba more than once, and was brought back.
Yeah.
And finally, when they did escape, again, if everything that is being said is correct, I mean, he jumped into the water to save his mother from drowning, and the man, I have to tell you, when I read a little bit about his personality, reminded me of a good friend of mine who died young. But he was the type of guy who, all the guys could be sitting around moping, and this guy would come up and he'd make you laugh. Whether it was something he said that was funny or something that he did that was funny, and really loved life, loved what he did. And, he was taken from us at an early age. And what I've read about Jose Fernandez is accurate. He was that type of guy who loved life. He loved what he was doing in life. And you know what? He went all out probably at everything he did. And you know what? He was, I don't know, I'm not going to try to fill in facts where I don't know them, but it looks like he went out, he was enjoying himself on his boat.
It wasn't his boat. It wasn't his boat.
Or whoever's boat.
Yeah, and that boat, from the things I read on Sunday, the owner of that boat had been stopped several times for unsafe boating.
Okay.
with Marlins players on board.
Okay.
So
But you know what? I think let's put it this way. Sometimes when you see a person who's full of life and that life is taken from them early, I always think to myself, does that person, maybe not something in the front of their head, but in the back of their head, have something that says to them, you know what, maybe I don't have all that much time, and I better enjoy the time that I have.
enjoy your life.
Yeah.
Enjoy your life.
And I really think there may be something that is a little voice that's speaking in the back of their head that's telling them, enjoy every minute, buddy, because you're not going to have that many of them.
You never know what's going to happen. It was another sad story over the weekend. On Sunday night was when the news item came out that Arnold Palmer, the great golfer, passed away.
When I thought about that, Jim, because you know what my response to your
Yes,
text was.
and we can't say that on the air because John
Right.
John will call the priest immediately,
Yeah.
and then Kevin will be over here and he'll make us re-record everything.
But it really made me think. The word superstar is thrown around today pretty, in my estimation, fairly casually. But when you think about a guy, there's a guy. Babe Ruth probably made baseball into what it is. And I'm not saying there were great golfers prior to Arnold Palmer, many of them. But Arnold Palmer, you could probably say, is the guy who made golf.
Oh,
in
by
this
all
country.
means, yeah.
I mean, made it the sport that it is today. Really gave the players who played today the entree to make the money that they're making today.
Mm-hmm.
And but I would say, as I thought about it, in the pantheon of superstars, Arnold Palmer is definitely one of the genuine ones.
I had to laugh. I posted the news on a sports board, the Scoreheads board, that Arnold Palmer had passed away at 87, and some guy whose name is Dan Palmer said, "Oh great, now what am I supposed to drink?" I said, "Well, why don't you make it simple? Just go in and order a Dan Palmer now." I heard something interesting today. When I was driving over here on the quarter hour on the Score. They have a CBS Sports Minute, and Boomer Esiason said the game of golf changed. The game of golf really changed on the basis of an $800 and some odd cost of a life insurance policy.
Okay.
When Arnold was, who was he with? Wilson Sporting Goods. It was coming time for the contract to be renewed. And at that point in time, at his age, he was. Boomer said at that point, Arnold was 31. He was married, had a couple of daughters. He wanted a little protection. And he said, "Well, in my next contract, I'd like a life insurance policy." And Wilson said, "No." So what did he do? He waited for his contract to run out. Arnold Palmer Golf Equipment Company was born. His agent, Mark McCormick, and him launched IMG.
Yeah.
And the sport changed.
Yeah. Huge.
So the sport changed. So not only one of the great golfers, but one of the great entrepreneurs, when you think about it. How
Jim,
much he changed the game at that point.
If you ever get a chance, read the book Arnie and Jack. Came out, I'd say, maybe 10 years ago.
I think I may have read that. It sounds familiar.
It's one of the opening stories is, Jack. I guess there's a tournament in Ohio near where Jack Nicklaus grew up, and Jack wasn't on the tour yet; he was still a kid. But apparently, he was at this tournament, and the tournament was delayed by rain. And he said he remembers seeing Arnie Palmer in a pouring rain out on the practice range, just hitting one shot after another. And, just first off, the discipline to stand there and be, get soaked, and then the concentration and despite the conditions that this guy is going to work on his game regardless, no matter what. And really a great book. And I've read a couple of the individual biographies of Nicholas and Palmer, but that book by far is probably the best book to really give you a really good picture of both of those guys. So, but too bad. I'm really sorry. I can remember sitting at my grandfather's house on a Sunday afternoon and watching. Excuse me. Watching Arnie march up that fairway
with his army behind him.
with his army behind him.
Yeah. I have those same memories. That's the guy that really made golf the sport it is. Really.
No doubt about it.
Yeah. So, all right, that takes care of what I want to talk about. What do you want to do? I'm done. You got 20 minutes to figure it out.
Well, where do you think the Bears are going to go from here?
3-13.
3-13, really?
My fear is we're going to wind up. There's going to be a run at the end. Mm-hmm. They wind up 7-9, and here we are now. We've had the Bulls in basketball purgatory for years. The Bears are going to be in football purgatory.
Yeah, but I don't think it's the same. I don't think it's the same deal.
No. But you know what? If you're going to have, you can pretty much be certain that Cutler's gone after the season because there's no more guaranteed money.
Mm-hmm.
So 1st of March next year, he's going to be released. You got $13 million in cap money to play with. What are you going to do? You're going to have to look for a quarterback.
Well, the thing that is sort of, if you want to criticize the current, if you want to criticize Pace, let's put it that way, Ryan Pace, wouldn't, it seems to me that we wanted to maybe build this team through the draft.
Yeah.
Yet we have still been drawn to bringing in free agents. You know what I would say? Last year we had... who were played? Anderson played linebacker, Jones, Temu. Now this year we drafted Floyd and we drafted Kwiatkowski. Why the heck? You know what? To me, okay, leave a veteran guy like say a Sam Acho there. Sort of a leader guy, not a guy who's needs to play a lot of minutes because he doesn't. But the guy who's smart, he's a team guy. He's going to show these young guys how to do it. And you know what? Take your... and these guys have not been bad, but take your Willie Youngs and your Lamar Houstons, get rid of those guys, okay? Get rid of them. They're taking up valuable time that young guys could be...
Well, you don't have to worry about Lamar Houston.
No, he's out. But get rid of... you know what? Why do you bring in... it seemed like a great idea. Bring in Trevathan and Freeman. I don't see anything happening there.
I thought it was a good idea. It's one of those, kind of reminds me of the White Sox offseason a year ago.
Yeah, where you think you're getting
something and you've got nothing.
Exactly. So why not let the young guys grow, make their mistakes, and hope that they grow into good football players? If you're a good evaluator, you should be able to feel that this guy's going to grow into a decent football player. But to me, they panicked a little bit, and they wanted to show what they could do, and they're still not showing anything.
They're still not.
Everybody would understand if we were 0-3 if we were going with the young guys. But nobody is understanding it when we're failing with veteran guys we brought in.
Yeah.
I'd say this. Forget about Pernell McPhee. Get rid of him, too. I mean, who knows if he'll ever be as good as he was, and I'm not sure he was that good to begin with. So it's go with the young guys.
When you listen to Fox talk, I said I'm starting to liken him when I hear him on TV or on radio and hear an interview with him. I'm starting to liken him to the adults in the Peanuts cartoon because all I keep hearing is wah, 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 wah. And I don't know. I mean the comment here. he may be right, but his comment was, well, when Cutler's ready, he may not be the starter,
Yeah, that's fine.
which is understandable.
Sure,
That's
fine. I think
Seeing is believing, though.
I think
Seeing is believing.
I think the reason John Fox is here is that the Hallis family really felt that they went the wrong direction for their franchise, say with a guy like Trestman, who was a modern guy, say, as opposed to they wanted to have an old-fashioned football coach. And John Fox is an old-fashioned football coach.
Yeah.
Now, from Fox, it's funny that you bring up Fox because one of the things I was thinking about as I was coming over this way is I sort of like Fox. Fox will, they'll ask Fox this, that, and the other thing, and they're like, hey, you know what? All I could do is play the guys I have. You know what? In reality, that's every football coach's answer.
That's every coach.
So what do you want me to say?
Yeah.
What would you like me to say?
Yeah.
That I'm going to pull a rabbit out of my hat? I don't have one. All I've got is what I've got.
All I could think of when you said that was Lou Piniella getting in an argument with a writer after one Cub game about it's like, and I think that was his answer. I mean, you got the Piniella. Oh, what do you want me to do?
Yeah, well,
this is what I got.
Yeah, this is what I got is right. And I'd say this: you have a really good defensive coordinator in Vic Fangio. The thing that stood out to me about Sunday night's game, and it's the first one I've seen, and I have not seen this guy play at all, but I know he's a big lug in the middle. I would say the guy they probably missed the most was Eddie Goldman, because Dallas was running right. You know what? Let me tell you something. The Bears, if they could have stopped the run, would have had a chance to stop Dallas. But because Dallas was so effective on the run, it opened the pass up, and they were off and running. But if you would have had a run stopper in there, somebody who could have clogged up those holes that Elliott and Morris were going through, you got a whole different ball game there. So to me, if of the guys who were injured, which is the one guy I would like to have back, it would be the big guy in the middle. The other guys, not to say you don't need them, but I think that's the guy you needed the most. They went through our line like it was paper, and that shouldn't happen.
What's your thoughts on Kevin White?
He's a work in progress. I think he's every game he's played, he's gotten a little bit better, and I think by the end of the year, I think he'll have an effective receiver, and then from there, who knows what.
There has been some fingers pointed at the new offensive coordinator, and is he too conservative, or is he doing the same thing? Is he having to deal with the same thing that the rest of the team is dealing with? Inexperience and injuries.
Well, I think part of it is just, as you say, inexperience and injury. Although I think as the game went on, let's put it this way: I think that I think there's a little bit of improvement in the offensive line, which is going to help. I mean, you're going nowhere without those guys, and I mean, when you lose, say, your starting quarterback, you have guys who are in and out of practice because of injury. You bring a whole, you have a guy who's never been a center, and he's a rookie on top of it, playing center.
Yeah.
I would say this: the offensive line, in my opinion, you got to have the most coordination between those guys, probably of any unit that you have on the field, offense or defense. And if those guys, I think the talent is there. So if those guys get on the same page, you could see the offense improve fairly quickly. So, but yeah, I think he's dealing with the same. What would really help is that if White can get up to speed quick, then you have three legitimate options as wide receivers. Plus, Miller is a very effective receiver as an end.
Oh yeah.
The one thing to me that they don't have in the running backs they have, including Howard, is what they had in Matt Forte, a guy who can come out of the backfield and catch a pass. And I think,
he's done,
I
I think he's done, and he's done well with the Jets.
Yeah.
No.
Now, I'm not knocking the fact that they got rid of Forte, because I'm going to say this. I go back to the old Branch Rickey theory. You got to get rid of a guy a year too early.
It's
instead
better
of a year
to get
too
rid.
soon.
Yeah,
And if
Year too
people
early
tell
than a
me,
year
I don't
too late.
remember what I read, but they'll say, well, Matt Forte wanted, let's say, he wanted a multi-year contract, let's say 3 years. You're not going to give a 30, 31-year-old running back 3 years. It's not, because the likelihood is, I'm not wishing him, I hope he goes on, and because he's a great guy, I hope he continues his career successfully. Odds are this might be his last good year.
yeah,
I mean, running backs will go downhill pretty fast once they hit about 31, 32.
yeah. It's rare.
So-
It's rare when you get one that goes on.
Yeah.
I guess the one thing they say, for what it's worth, the Bears' next 3 opponents are a combined 2-7 right now.
Well, there's another thing that I get a laugh out of. If you would have looked at the Bears' schedule before this season, those who think they're in the know, and I don't count myself among them, would have said, Philly stinks. We're going to beat Philly, no problem. Well, Philly right now stands 3-0 on top of their division.
And you got a quarterback.
You got a quarterback
you-
that right now looks like he's the real deal.
Yep.
You never know what's going to happen
Yep.
with that as the season goes on.
as the league catches up to him.
But, when you look at the schedule and you say, well, yeah, we should win this one and we'll probably lose this one, all of these years are so different. And especially in a sport like football, injuries are so real and so significant. How the heck can you look at a schedule before anybody's played a game and say, well, we should win this and we'll probably lose this?
Yeah, that's a great way for people to fill space and fill time.
Yeah. So when you say, I'll bet you what are the next 3 teams that we play?
Detroit 1-2, the Colts 1-2, and the Jaguars 0-3.
Okay, other than the Jaguars, who are usually pretty bad, and Gus Bradley is probably on his way out as the head coach. But Detroit, everybody I heard, if you talked about the Bears in the offseason, Detroit's going to be way better. Well, they're sitting 1-2, and they don't look that much better.
No, they look about as same as they always did.
Indianapolis is usually a contender, and they're 1-2, but I don't know who they played. So maybe, if they've had a tough first 3 games, maybe 1-2 is what you might expect, or they could be 3-0 with a couple breaks. Who knows?
Their victory last Sunday was against San Diego.
Okay,
That's
right. They played San Diego.
Yeah, and San Diego wasn't anything. A couple of surprises, as you said. Philadelphia being 3-0, and their quarterback.
Yeah, Wentz has looked really good.
But
who would have knew that? I mean, everybody said, hey, how many times have you seen a kid from a small school that looked like they could be very good because they could throw the ball or whatever, and they weren't that good?
No.
This guy happens to maybe be the real deal.
He
possibly.
may happen to be the real deal.
Yeah.
And who'd have thought that Trevor Siemian would succeed Peyton Manning, and the Broncos would be 3-0 right now?
You know what, though, Jim? Why not? Trevor,
Yeah.
think about this.
It's one of those you look at, and why not is correct, but you
Yeah.
look at it initially, and you go, Trevor Siemian?
Jim, here's the thing. I would say this. Every quarter, now, boy, at the end, Peyton Manning was able to win games, and he was probably the weakest arm quarterback in the league.
Yeah.
So he knew, but he knew what he was doing. The thing I would say about like QB, I read a book one time where it was about all these quarterback schools and stuff they have. David Fales was like one of the most accurate in these deals. Okay, and I'm not saying anything negative about David Fales, but I think the reality is, first off, if you get into the right situation, I don't care what your name is, and even the much maligned Jay Cutler, if he gets in the right situation, he can be successful.
It's what's around you.
It's what's around you, and especially a guy like Simeon, who's Northwestern grad, so he's got to be a pretty
He's
smart guy.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you pick up? How fast do you pick it up? I get a kick out of, say, Brock Osweiler looked really good. In how many games did he play with Denver last year? 4 games? Maybe?
Four
or
games,
5.
4 or 5 games.
And I'm not saying he's not talented, but you know what? It's a lot different playing, first off, with a defense like Denver's got, which is going to
Right.
help the offense
Right.
because they're going to give you the ball a lot of times in good spots.
Right.
And you know what? Denver has got some solid offensive players.
Yeah.
Now you're in Houston. It's a whole different ball game there.
Yeah. And you're scripting, and I haven't looked at the numbers completely, but I think as far as Simeon, they're scripting the offense to take advantage of whatever his strengths might be.
Well, that's a huge
Short
thing.
short passes, that type of stuff. I think they said the same thing about Wentz. I don't think they're really letting Wentz unload.
Yeah,
You know.
maybe that's. I think that's an overrated thing anyway.
Oh,
Jim.
yeah.
How many times do you successfully throw the ball 50 yards downfield and complete it? How not very often.
Not very often. You're not going to do that.
So what are we talking about here?
It's a game of clock control, short passes, have a running back when you need him.
Yeah.
And that's the way that's the way offenses are going to run. It's not going to be some wacky BYU offense from back in the 80s.
Well, did you see the game on Sunday or no?
No, I did not.
Because I wish you would have, because I then we could compare what we saw. But
It was Monday.
Sunday
the-
night.
Sunday night. Oh, the Bears were Sunday night.
Yeah,
That's right.
But
No.
Prescott.
No,
they praised to the high heavens, and he's doing well, obviously. But you know what? It seemed to me that a lot of times, and he was not doing this because his arm strength's not there, but to get the ball off quicker, because he'd see the man open and want to get it there before the defense got there. He'd sort of push it. You didn't get a full throw, almost like it seemed to me. And I'm like, wow, that's weird.
Weird
but
motion.
then when he had to throw it, normally and get some zip on it, he did that too. But I guess my point was, I didn't see like a super powerful arm. I'm not saying he doesn't have it, but a lot of his throws, you know what? He saw the man open, he hurried up, got the ball there. Okay, that which is
All
fine.
right, so he's got a good presence and understands what his reads are.
Yeah, exactly. He saw what and he got he delivered the ball while the man was open, so there was some time for the receiver maybe to get extra yardage
Get
running.
some distance.
And but I mean, I don't think what I saw was good. I don't think it was like great. I mean, he's doing fine, obviously, but it's not like he's any better than anybody else that you see arm wise or whatever. So, but he seems to be sharp and seems to think well on his feet and get the ball delivered.
Okay, well, Tony Romo is going to have a problem getting his job.
He might.
He
might. I don't know.
Tony Romo's gotten a little bit fragile over the years.
Yeah, I mean Tony.
And the other surprise is you never would have thought it. You never would have thought it. Looking at the Vikings now at 3-0 after they lose their starting quarterback, they bring in Sam Bradford. You lose Adrian Peterson for I don't know how long, if he's done for the year or not. I know he went on IR. There was another injury on defense, and I can't think of who it is.
Yeah, I think I heard that.
Another injury on defense, and they're 3-0.
Yeah,
Which and which lets you which you get to the point and say you never know what's going to happen.
Well, the other thing is Sam Bradford one of those guys that has, through fate, let's say, maybe he's finally got into a situation that favors him.
It could be. It may well be that.
Because as far as talent goes, I think Sam Bradford is a talented quarterback. But he was with the Rams, and he was basically a rookie starter. I think the Rams were on the cusp of being in the playoffs one of his first couple of years, and just didn't make it. Then he had the injuries with the Rams. Then he went to the Eagles, and that was a mess. It was Chip Kelly's last year, and he had totally sort of ruined the team
he
as far
really
as
had-
what his
yeah.
personnel decisions went. And maybe he finally is in a stable situation. Let's call it that. Let's call it that, and maybe he'll be the Sam Bradford that they thought he was going to be coming out of college.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'm just was glancing here at Rick Morrissey's article today.
oh well, Rick
About-
Morrissey knows all, sees all.
Yeah, that's right. I was just about to say he's another one that no plan in sight.
Well, the newspaper, and you see this pretty often in the newspapers, is the one that always kills me is the Bear. You fill in the blank: Bears, Cubs, Sox, Bulls, Hawks need to do this. They do. I mean, really okay. The experts from that have never coached, general managed, done anything of the sort.
That's right.
We need to do this.
That's right. I had to laugh a good part of the baseball season. I had to laugh a good part of the baseball season because I follow Barry Rosner from the Daily Herald on Twitter and Facebook, and Rosner always can be very tongue in cheek with things, and his he would make these sarcastic comments about guys like Morrissey and Tellender with their articles, and Whittemire not understanding what's going on with the Cubs and everything else, and anything he would text during a game or put up on Facebook was always followed by hashtag the plan sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's the deal with Bryant? He couldn't get that triple for the he couldn't get that triple for the cycle. Hashtag the plan sucks. They only won 100 games this year. Hashtag the plan sucks.
Why?
Yeah.
That's really
Yeah. We didn't even get into the Cubs.
The Cubs.
100 victories, first time since 1935.
Wow.
First time since 1935 they won 100 ball games. And I saw a stat here. Of course, everybody likes to put stats up. Let me go back and find it. Let's see. 1935, they won 100 games. Lost the World Series
To the Tigers?
to the Tigers. 1910, they won 104 games. Lost the World Series.
1910?
1910, I think it was to the Tigers.
I'm going to say
Maybe
to
no.
the Red Sox.
Maybe to the Reds. No, Reds, or was it Philly maybe? The A's? I can't
No,
remember.
my guess is at that time it would either be the Red Sox or
Well, 1909, they won 104 games. Didn't qualify for the World Series.
they lost to the Giants.
1909.
They
won.
lost to the Giants. They didn't go. The Giants probably won.
Giants probably won that year. 1907, they won 107 games and won the World Series. In 1916, they won 116 games and didn't win the World Series.
That's when they lost to the White Sox.
That was the White Sox.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, the Cubs were the Cubs in the early part of the 20th century were a dynastic type of team.
yeah, ooh, nice word,
Yeah,
dynastic.
yeah.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
Ridgewood education you got from that.
But
Boy.
they were along with the Giants, the Pirates, and probably the Red Sox in the American League were the cream of baseball.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Just glancing also about Kyle Hendricks, leading the league in ERA right now, earned run average. Probably, and season ends, he's going to have the best earned run average. No, he won't have the best earned run average in Cub history because Arrieta was 1.77 last year.
well, these Cubs are really special. I'd say much better than the '69 Cubs. Much
Oh, yeah.
better than some of the other Cubs teams
Yeah.
of the '80s, '90s, and 2000s that have been playoff teams. I'd say this club is way better.
probably you go back when you're old enough. We keep thinking about 1969, which was painful to watch. 84 was probably the one that was was really disappointing. Because you go out to San Diego, you're up 2-0, and you couldn't win a third ball game to move on.
Yeah,
and that was disappointing. 89 against the Giants. The Giants were a better ball club. The Giants were the better ball club. There was no argument about that. But we move on. We see what happens. You have a thought there, Mr. DeVita, as you're kind of creeping towards your microphone?
What is your prediction for the Cubs with the World Series?
I'm not predicting anything. I am not predicting anything.
Yeah, I wouldn't predict anything either. Somebody said, John, the other week, and I don't know, it was not somebody from the Cubs, but maybe it was. It might have been John Lackey, who's pretty straight shooter. And he said, let's face it, any of these things is basically who's hot at that time.
That's right.
So we're not at that time
right.
yet, and
you're going to have to, when you look at the matchups in the National League, probably the team that would my thought the team that might give them the most trouble right now would be the Dodgers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think that could be a team that could give them the most trouble.
I think, you know what, though, Jen? I found, whether it's me personally with the things I've competed in or our teams, I get a feeling really quick whether things are going to go good or bad in a series, a game, because you could tell this is not, you know what, this is not going the way it's supposed to, or this is going really good. So
I remember early in the 2005 postseason, watching the White Sox in a playoff, I turned to the lady who was in my life then, a diehard Cub fan, and I looked at her and I said, "Get used to this phrase right now. You're world champion, Chicago White Sox."
Yeah.
I said, because there's something about them. There's something about them. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right, once again, we managed to waste an hour.
You got it.
Can't figure out. This is just like our what I would always refer to as our laughingly what we called show prep. We just sit down now and do the show prep. By the time we've prepped it, you've got it all recorded, and it's time to get the hell out of here. Whoops, I said a bad word.
Uh-oh.
John, call a priest. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. All right, let's wrap it up. Let's get out of here. We got a football game Friday night. Homecoming Friday night. So we hope all good Rebels show up, past and present.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to wrap it up for us. So let's get out of here. We start the music, John. Start the music. All right, there it is. Okay. All right, that's it. We're going to get out of here. We are Taillights.
And whatever happened.
You have been listening to Armchair Experts from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Wednesday, September the 28th, the year 2016, on Jack FM 89.7, WRHS FM Norwich, and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network with the WRHS sports announcers Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. This broadcast was directed by John DeVita. Our special thanks to radio station manager Kevin Zeflik of WRHS FM Norwich and the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Shikanda. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Tuesday, September the 27th, the year 2016. Until next time, please be safe and thanks for listening. And be sure to tune in to WRHS FM Norwich on Friday for the Rebels against Chicago Christians. This is be the homecoming game for the Rebels. So once again, a live broadcast on WRHS FM Norwich around 7 o'clock p.m. right here on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich. And this is Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich, Illinois.